What is going on, everybody? What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So, as y'all know, today is indeed no. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So, as y'all know, today is indeed going to be Wednesday, which means a new summit is now live here at Motorfest. For this week, we are going to have the Glow Motorsport Underglow, which, if you are wondering, is a Crew 2 reward. So, it is not going to be a new one, and on top of that, it's also going to be uncommon. So, yeah, a lot of players might not be too interested in that, but we're then going to have the Alfa Romeo in gold, legendary perf parts there, and 5,000 spare parts in bronze. For the next summit, we're also then going to have the Koenigsegg CCR there in gold, $150,000, and the Red Fury Nitro. We can also now look at this summit after that, guys. We're going to have the Freedom Stars Nitro. You're then going to see the aerobatic plane there, which is going to be the air race, aka, aerobatic air race being together. We're then going to have 200,000 bucks after that, so nothing too insane going on. Yeah, it's going to be a Red Bull plane, but do keep in mind if you're expecting the plane to be pretty much brand new, it is going to be the 330 basically with a livery on it. Now, looking at the 2v4 summit here, the first thing I want to mention is it is going to say 2 versus 4, so 2 wheels versus 4 wheels, aka the Ducati versus the Ferrari in the background there. Funny part is you're not actually versing each other technically though, because you're kind of just racing with the other vehicle there. You pick one vehicle, like you're not going to jump into one of 6 of the main events here and go, okay, so I can pick a bike or a car. No, you pretty much pick one or the other, because we all do know if there was a choice, no one is going to pick a motorcycle, because for one, they're going to be slower than the car, so that's kind of going to be an L there. I think it's around 40 something miles an hour slower for racing, and on top of that, the handling on the bikes is honestly pretty questionable. What's also kind of funny about this summit, though, is I have pretty much been going into each summit being more and more casual in basically all of them. I mean, heck, guys, last week's summit I got over 8,000th place or something like that. I am running no pro settings, no part sets, and pretty much jumping into these with some of the worst vehicles ever, even though the non-meta cars honestly suffer so dang much. So the first one here is going to be a slalom for with the Ferrari FXXK. Basically, jump into this. You do not have to have a regular score breaker on the car if you are wondering. No, you can easily get 156,000 points, putting you 1,000 points behind, using something like a chemist set like I did, and skill to fix on every single part. That is legitimately it on that one. Also on the Bullseye, though, you're going to have to use a ground vehicle and also a plane. Again, guys, no score breaker set. I used skilled on my plane with a random part set. And also on the motocross bikes, I ended up going in there and putting skilled and pure on every single part. I got 157,300 points on that. Isn't that insane? Legit 500 points behind everybody basically using a score breaker. So it's honestly kind of funny. But the Speedtrap, though, I did do a few different things on this with testing. You're probably going to notice, looking at the platform here, basically any of the leaderboards, that it is pretty much going to be the Lamborghini Gallardo almost everywhere. You're also then going to notice the regular Huracan being used as well. Now, the funny thing is you can actually run a lot of different racing vehicles on this one, and you're probably going to do okay. Now, I did run this not having any parts set on it. I wanted to jump in and try something like a regular vehicle, so I did end up trying the Lamborghini with a loot digger. I didn't end up doing that good. I think I got like 230 something miles an hour with it. I then jumped in the Ferrari FXXK and I threw on a Nitro Chemist to test it, and I instantly got 268 miles an hour. So for this one, guys, if you are trying to score a bit decently, I would recommend throwing on a part set. Unfortunately, with the way this speed trap is going to be located, if you're not using it, you are just simply not going to be fast enough at all, no matter what you do, to get a decent score on this one. Moving over to the 6 events here, though, you're probably going to see something along the lines of these being a dynamic type of race, which honestly is probably going to be a fancy word for a regular event. I mean, yeah, you're going to have the bar on top of the screen showing you how long the event is. You're also then going to be 1v1ing either a car or a bike, depending on the event. So for the vehicle owned here, you are going to have to use the Ferrari FXXK again. And I would say this car is going to be fairly solid, being basically stock, and also pretty much having no pro settings or anything on it. It's actually pretty dang good. Funny part is the other event, you're also going to have to use a Ferrari. For this, I jumped in with the lovely playlist reward, which is also going to be the 488 GT3. I gotta admit, guys, not running pro settings, that car is honestly pretty dang terrible. I did do a run with it. I wasn't that happy with it. I then went, okay, let me try the Ferrari FXXK, no pro settings again, running a loot digger set. So I'm not going to have a chemist set on any of these events, and I pretty much did 5 to 6 seconds faster. And again, the run wasn't even perfect with the Ferrari. I could go in, get some lines better. I'm like, you know what? Is that really going to be worth it? To be honest, I don't really see a point with the reward being a regular underglow that most people probably already have. We're then going to have a racing event in the lovely Ferrari FXXK again, so pretty much go wild on this event. It's going to be a fairly easy one. I got 116,000 points. And again, guys, none of these runs were perfect whatsoever. If I threw on a chemist set, maybe threw on some pro settings, I would probably get much faster times in these events. But to be real, I'm trying to show you that you can easily get into these summits, get platinum in them, not running any settings, pretty much jumping in very casual, and it's still going to be possible. For the racing bike event here, though, it is going to pretty much say bike, so you can legitimately use any bike of your liking in this entire event. But here's the issue with this. I gotta say this because I feel like everybody probably does feel it and also has said it. I'm going to say it again. The bikes are honestly terrible in this game. And not only that, though, there is definitely going to be a balancing issue there somewhere because many of the bikes are awful. For example, you can use something like the RC16 here, or, even something like the regular one that's going to be located here. I did try to do the event with it. And to be honest, guys, it just is not a very good bike. I was like, okay, so I tried the bike on this one. I did like this one on the other event. I'm like, okay, let me jump in, let me try it. I did end up going back. I tried the Ducati Panigale R, and it's honestly not even close, man. Like, this bike is so much better than the other ones. I don't even really see a point of running any of the other bikes. I know the BMW is pretty good. You're probably going to use the Ninja H2 and go, yeah, this thing is kind of quick, but it's way too heavy or something. So yeah, I feel like there's not only going to be a motorcycle issue in this game, but the overall balancing on these bikes with that and the handling behind them, I just don't think they're going to be all that good. For the second event, I also did end up using the Ducati Panigale R. When clicking on this one, it is going to be the Europe base, so there is going to be a good amount of bikes here. But again, the Ducati is just so dang good. I did end up trying this event on the RC16 as well, but even running no pro settings with a loot digger set, I found the Ducati to handle and also feel much better than these bikes do. So it's probably going to be fairly obvious what you're going to have to run on basically every event. I'm not saying every bike in the game is going to be terrible, guys, at least because that, you know what, they kind of are. But if you are looking to get a good score in the summit, though, you are most likely going to have to run this bike, which honestly, I can't really blame people. It is legitimately that good. You're going to use that and go, okay, well, why would I use any of the other bikes? Because there's honestly not a reason to do it. I really wish someday we'd actually get some type of change on the motorcycles, but at this rate, being 1.5 years in, I honestly don't really see it. Besides all of that, though, if you have any questions, guys, do let me know in the comments below. Overall, this summit wasn't all that bad. It was fairly simple to do, basically all racing. Even though the reward is going to be complete trash in this one, I feel like players might still jump in and do it.